Today is Saturday and we are at Birmingham's Botanic Garden. Beautiful day here, a little sunny though, but other than that I think it's a great day to be at the gardens. The kids are playing in the sand, and well, it's a sand to me.
I just want to guess.
Huh?
I just want to guess.
You what?
I just want to guess.
Really? Okay. You just bought a dress. Okay. All right. We want to talk to you about one of the things that I am a practitioner of, and that is design thinking. So design thinking, it's really an innovation tool. And the whole idea behind design thinking is that, or the fundamental difference between design thinking and all other innovation tools is the following. The other innovation tool, many of them focus jumps into looking at innovative solutions to kind of solve the problem. But in design thinking, the key difference is in the part where we aim to accurately define and to accurately identify what the real problem is. You see, the thing is sometimes we think that the issue is a problem, but really there is an underlying problem. Let me give you an example to illustrate that. So for example, in my work with schools, many of the teachers would tell me that their students are not reading enough. And so they kind of identify the problem to be not reading enough. And so with that as the problem, what do you think are some of the solutions that they come up with? Well, they will come up with programs like, reading programs, programs to kind of encourage students to read more. And so that will be what some of the ideas that they come up with. But for years, they would not be able to resolve this challenge until we come along. And so when we work with the schools, we've asked them to identify what exactly is the problem. So the problem is not that the students are not reading enough. The problem is that the students are not reading the kind of materials that the teachers would want them to read. What do I mean by that? Essentially what it's saying is that the students are motivated to read, just not the kind of materials that the teachers want them to read. So by accurately identifying what is the problem, they will then be able to come up with plausible solutions to address the problem itself. So that's the key difference between innovation and other innovation tools and design thinking. The other thing that it really kind of appealed to me when it comes to design thinking is that it's a very simple three-step process. And that three-step process could be viewed in various forms. One, it's ideals format or framework, as they call it. It's called the 3 I's. So the first I is basically inspiration, the second I is ideation, and the third I is implementation. So essentially what it's saying is that, first is inspiration. That means, perhaps you are a person who is really observant, and you observe that there is a particular problem that people are facing. So an example I can give you is, for instance, Drew Houston, who invented or who founded Dropbox. He recognized a problem, and the problem is that many college students needs to work on files on different computers. So they might work on that project on the computer in the lab, or they might work it in the dorm, or they might want to bring it out on their laptop, for example, assuming they are not using the same machine. So when he identified that the problem is that sometimes you might forget your thumb drive, or sometimes your thumb drive might crash, and as a result of that, you lose everything that you have saved in that little thing. So that being the problem, it inspired him to look at a solution that enabled him to have access to the same set of files anywhere you go, and it's always up to date. So that's the inspiration phase. The ideation phase, basically, it's looking at what are some ideas that you can come up with to resolve that problem. So once again, if you have identified the problem accurately, downstream when you look at solutions, obviously you're going to come up with solutions that will be able to address the problem. But if upstream you have identified the problem inaccurately or erroneously, then downstream is going to lead you to a series of solutions that may not actually address the problem in the first place. So ideation is the second phase, and the third phase is basically implementation. Now, implementation, according to IDEO, includes the part where you look at prototyping as well as testing phase. So prototype means you put up something which is a minimum viable product, you take it out in front of 10 people, you ask them, you get a feedback, and then you come back and you kind of reiterate from there. So that is the whole process. So another way of looking at design thinking is, they have there are three phases as well: empathy phase, ideation phase, and prototype phase. So again, the empathy phase is, to put yourself in the shoes of the people who are facing the problem and to kind of accurately identify what the problem is. Ideation is really to look at the possible solutions. And then in the prototype phase is where you want to see how you could test those solutions or those ideas that you come up with and to see whether people buy. Now, why is this design thinking such a big thing? In my opinion, it's because, the other part of it is because of this. It is what we call human-centered. Now, as opposed to, you may ask, as opposed to technology-centered. So, let's take, for example, if you're designing a website, do you design the website or do you put together a website in a way just because the technology allows you to? Or do you design the website in such a way that you think of what the user would do as it goes through your website? So for example, if I'm looking at targeting men who are above 40 who are going through what I call a midlife crisis, then I may structure my website in such a way that first, I would attract them to my website based on the keyword phrase midlife crisis. And then from there, I would kind of bring them through the process of say that if you have these signs, then it means that you are experiencing a midlife crisis. And then once you recognize that you have these signs, this is what you need to take. So once I've, identified what is the psyche, what is the archetype, what is the thinking, what is the behavior of the person who I'm targeting, then I would design my website in such a way to kind of feed into this person's process or this person's behavior or this person's archetype. As opposed to, I go down to WordPress, I look at all the plugins, and I say, ooh, this plugin is cool, this plugin is great. So for example, it's like you start seeing, in the past, you start seeing that carousel or the slider thing that on the website. Just because, the technology allows you to do that doesn't mean that it's the best for your website, because it depends on the people that you're targeting. So if the people that you're targeting are there looking for content, showing them pictures may not be the most ideal thing. So you want to design your website, from the point of view of your user rather than just because the technology allows you to. So that the thinking itself, that mindset, that perspective, that idea of creating something for the person rather than just because it's technological possible or technologically feasible, it's not the way to go. So that's why I think design thinking is, we're just saying the beginnings of design thinking, and increasingly, if you're not using design thinking as a way to think about how to, design anything, whether it's a website experience or the buying experience, you're gonna really be not be, you're really going to be missing out a lot. Okay, so that's about design thinking. In the next video, what I will share with you a little bit about is how I have started my journey as a solopreneur. Of course, a lot of time people talk about how you started, how you come up with an idea, and then people talked about, where you are now. But really the interesting part is the part that is in between. Scott Belsky called it the messy middle, and that's what we're going to be talking about, and that's what I'm going to be spending most of the time sharing with you, the kind of pains, the kind of struggle that I go through as I'm starting out. Yeah. Okay, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.